Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're testing out a vastly improved Pokemon in the Open Master League, and that is Breaking Swipe RHYPERIOR. RHYPERIOR is a ground and rock type Pokemon that has two extremely viable movesets. If you're running Mud Slap, you're going to want to run Breaking Swipe and the legacy move Rock Wrecker, and if you're running Smackdown, you're going to want Breaking Swipe and Superpower. I tested it out in some practice Master League battles with the Mud Slap moveset, and oh my goodness, this thing is a beast. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out Breaking Swipe RHYPERIOR. Hopping to the first match, leading RHYPERIOR into Mewtwo. RHYPERIOR can win the 2-shield there, but I'm actually going to be safe switching into Kyurem. The goal of this team is to safe switch into the Kyurem to check and see if the opponent has any kind of a Dialga or a Zacian in the back. But my opponent is actually going to send in Kyogre. As you can see, I'm not running Dragon Claw, I am running Blizzard. Unfortunately, since they sent in Kyogre, all my charge moves here are resisted. I try and make it to the Blizzard, but I die with the move. I'm going to send in Rayquaza, no shield, and look to farm down. They're going to be firing off the Origin Pulse. Origin Pulse is a very strong move, but I'm able to get the farm down. Let's see, in the back, they have Dialga. I'm going for the Breaking Swipe, and let's see what RHYPERIOR can do. In comes RHYPERIOR, these Mud Slaps tearing through the Dialga. Opponent goes for the catch onto Mewtwo. I'm going to throw one extra Mud Slap, and let's begin the Breaking Swipe spam. Breaking Swipe on RHYPERIOR, of course, is going to be a guaranteed attack debuff onto your opponent, meaning that every time you throw it, your opponent's charge moves are going to be doing less and less damage. I'm now going for Breaking Swipe number 2. Their attack is 2 stages debuffed, so I can very comfortably no-shield this. RHYPERIOR does have pretty nice bulk, but that bulk is made even better by the fact that you now have access to Breaking Swipe. And now I can just commit the shield, go for the Breaking Swipe here. Breaking Swipe is going to be burning that final shield, and they just don't have nearly enough health. They try and get the farm down, but RHYPERIOR says no. Moving into the next match, leading RHYPERIOR into Lugia. Now, I'm running Mud Slap on RHYPERIOR, so my fast move is double resisted here. So it looks like Lugia is a pretty big problem for this team. However, there's a fun thing about RHYPERIOR, and that's even if you're running Mud Slap, you win the Zero Shield versus Lugia going straight for Rock Wrecker. They go for the Aero Blast, that's of course going to be resisted. Here, I'm going to look to farm up, and I am able to make it to the Rock Wrecker. So this way, I either get shield advantage, or I get switch. My opponent is going to let that through, and I'm going to look to pivot into Kyurem. They're going to send in Zekrom, and I bring in Kyurem. Kyurem going for the Glaciate into the Zekrom, but will lose CMP. Zekrom fires off the Fusion Bolt, I commit the shield, and I'm returning fire with the Glaciate. Not only does Glaciate hit for super effective damage, it has a guaranteed debuff. This entire team has the ability to lower the opponent's attack. Unfortunately, I die with the next Glaciate. I'm going to send in Rayquaza, and in the back, it's a Mudshot Groudon. That is extremely unfortunate for my opponent. I go for the Breaking Swipe, and as you can see, this team is just non-stop debuffs. No matter what Pokemon of mine is on the field, I'm going to get the debuff. But first, I'm going to go for a little catch, farm up, wait 2 turns, get the catch of the Precipice Blades onto RHYPERIOR, and we are in fine form here. In comes the Zekrom, they have energy, but I can very comfortably commit the shield and just farm down, and that's game over. Picking up a very terrible lead in the next match, RHYPERIOR into Groudon. I have 2 things that can beat Groudon, so I'm going to safe switch into Kyurem, and my opponent is going to send in Xerneas. The good news is I needed to bait out the Xerneas to free up Rayquaza in the back. Xerneas is a lot tougher for Kyurem than Zacian due to the fact that Geomancy hits for super effective damage. So even as I begin to apply these debuffs, their fast moves will do enough damage that even after I double debuff the Moonblast will still be enough to KO. But the good news here is I've now double debuffed them. RHYPERIOR is extremely tanky, so I'm going to be able to tank 2 close combats and farm all the way down. So I'm going to send in RHYPERIOR here and look for the full farm down. Opponent is going to save energy. They're going to give up switch. I'm going to farm up switch into Rayquaza as I bank a ton of energy onto my RHYPERIOR. They go for the Precipice Blades, and this is ambitious, but I'm going to try and go for the full farm down here with Rayquaza. They're going for Precipice Blades number 2. I honestly don't think I can get it, but I think I have to try. I'm farming up. This is just a Fire Punch. I know I live this. This is going to be so close. Fire Punch gets Rayquaza low. Rayquaza on 1 HP lives and leaves with the Dragon Ascent in the back. My opponent has their own Kyurem. Dragon Ascent nearly gets the one-shot. In comes Rhyperior. Opponent sends in Xerneas. Xerneas has reset the debuff, but now I can shield once and apply that debuff right back with the Breaking Swipe. This team is just non-stop debuffs. They can go for the close combat now, but guess what? That is not going to KO. Rhyperior tanks it like it's nothing, farms down the Xerneas, and leaves with a Breaking Swipe loaded. Breaking Swipe will be massive overkill and get the win. Moving into the next match, picking up a great lead, Rhyperior into Ho-Oh. Even with Mud Slap, this is a very good matchup for Rhyperior. A lot of the time, Ho-Ohs do have dragons in the back, potentially Dialga or one of the lesser dragons like Zekrom or Reshiram. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tank a Sacred Fire, build up past the Rock Wrecker, bait with the Breaking Swipe, and then I'm going to be save switching into Kyurem to check and see what my opponent has in the back. They can go for a move here, but they're debuffed. I can easily tank whatever they throw. They go for the Sacred Fire, and now my opponent is going to send in Reshiram. Okay, so it's not Dialga, but the good news is I was able to lure out the Reshiram. I get a debuff applied with Glaciate. I can send back in Rhyperior, make it to the Breaking Swipe, and before they even get a charge move, Breaking Swipe will be lethal. Rhyperior is now met with Rayquaza, and this is a bit scary. Rayquaza going for the Breaking Swipe. I have to shield this. I'm going to shield, go for a Breaking Swipe of my own. This is going to be lowering my opponent's attack, and now I can bring in my own Rayquaza. Now we have the battle of Rayquaza. Their Breaking Swipe is debuffed thanks to the Rhyperior, so I'm going to no shield here. I'm going to let this go. I know this will do less than a potential Brave Bird from the Ho-Oh. In comes the Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh needs to farm down to win. I'm firing off the Breaking Swipe, grabbing the shield. Rayquaza continuing to farm, and they're firing off a Sacred Fire here. Sacred Fire is going to get the shield. Do they get the debuff? They do not, and I'm able to make it to another Breaking Swipe. Team debuff gets the KO on the Ho-Oh, and it's a simul KO with the Rayquaza, but I have Rhyperior in the back, so I get the win. We see a Core Breaker on the lead in the next match, Rhyperior into Dragonite. Since I'm running Mud Slap, this does make the matchup with Dragonite substantially worse. I'm going to stay in here and fire off the Breaking Swipe. Of course, that will hit for super effective damage and lower their attack. I'm going to switch into Kyurem, and whether they go for a Dragon Claw or a Superpower, since it's debuffed, I can tank it. I'm able to tank it. My opponent is now going to send in their own Rayquaza, so they're running ABA Flying Dragons. Oh my goodness. Glaciate will get the shield, but this is really awkward. My opponent running a pretty atypical team, but that is really bad news for the Mud Slap Rhyperior here. Rhyperior farming up, making it to the Rock Wrecker. I'm debuffed, but this is not going to matter. Rock Wrecker will get the KO. Opponent in the back, they have Zekrom. Zekrom gets the farm down as my switch clock is just not yet up in time. And let's see what Rayquaza can do. I'm shielding up. They're going to be firing off the crunch. Do they get the debuff? They do not. I'm looking for the farm down. Opponent sends back in the Dragonite, and Dragonite has energy. Dragonite, Dragon Claw will get the shield, and I'm firing off my Breaking Swipe. My opponent is going to let this go. They're trusting in Zekrom, and Zekrom survives the Dragon Tail, and they're going to win the game here because the Breaking Swipe does not KO through the shield, and they win on 1 HP. Picking up a great lead in the next match, Mud Slap Rhyperior into Excadrill. Opponent checks the fast move, they're going to save switch into Dragonite, and I'm going to respond with Kyurem. Again, Dragonite is proving to be a bit of an awkward Pokemon for this team to handle. Rayquaza from the opponent is a lot easier to handle just because it's a lot glassier. But Dragonite has quite a bit of bulk, so I typically find myself having to go down shields if I want to preserve switch. My opponent is going to send back in the Excadrill. Exca will be able to outpace and make the Rock Slide before I make the Glaciate. But honestly, that's okay. I still have switch, so I can just Mud Slap with the Rhyperior. Rhyperior farming up. They're firing off the Drill Run. This does not KO. Again, Rhyperior has some pretty nice bulk. In the back, opponent has their own Rayquaza, and I'm firing off the Breaking Swipe. Breaking Swipe will be shielded, and now my opponent is debuffed, whereas I'm not. They do have the energy advantage, though, so they're going to be able to apply a debuff I commit the shield, and I'm going for my own Breaking Swipe immediately. I need to try and lower their damage output as fast as I can. Opponent lets it go. They're trusting in Exca to win the game, and Exca still has quite a bit of health left. I'm going to be firing off the Breaking Swipe. Breaking Swipe is going to be grabbing the final shield from the opponent. Exca looking to overfarm. Exca, I believe they're one short of a move here. So it all comes down to, do they get new mechanic? In comes RHYPERIOR, and the Mud Slap gets the win. We see a familiar lead in the next match, RHYPERIOR into Groudon. Again, not a good matchup, so I'm just going to be save switching into the Kyurem. They can strike first with the Precipice Blades, but as long as I shield one, I'm able to pretty easily win the ones or the twos. My opponent now gonna send in Ho-Oh, so they're running an unbalanced strategy that is very weak to Kyogre on the lead, so odds are their final Pokemon should do very well into Kyogre. But this Ho-Oh, at a massive energy disadvantage, is now going to be 2 stages debuffed, and this means that even though I've taken some chip damage, I can very comfortably tank the Sacred Fire here, and I'm going to get the full farm down. So now I have switch advantage, and that means that not only can I probably get a shield back from the Groudon with the Glaciate, but Groudon is going to be stuck going up against Rayquaza. I will get farm. Oh, actually, I don't get farm down here. My opponent, worried about another Glaciate, is going to fire off the Fire Punch. I can send in Rayquaza. My opponent has their own Rayquaza in the back. But since they switched and Switch took a turn, I'm able to strike first with the Breaking Swipe. I'm farming up, and now I'm going to switch into RHYPERIOR. And again, the bulk of RHYPERIOR cannot be stated enough. Look at that. Breaking Swipe just does nothing. Oh my goodness. I can no-shield this one as well. I'm perfectly fine. I'm now double debuffed, but that's okay. I'm looking to overfarm ever so slightly. Breaking Swipe, it's double debuff, but it's still going to KO the low health Rayquaza. My opponent now needs to try and farm down with the Groudon, but the good news is I can lower their attack with Breaking Swipe. This is double debuff, so it's going to do absolutely nothing, but Groudon now debuffed itself. Groudon cannot get the farm down. Again, the bulk of RHYPERIOR plus the debuff ability from Breaking Swipe is just incredibly deadly. Another match, another Groudon lead into our RHYPERIOR. Same game plan as before, save switching into the Kyurem. Opponent now going to respond with Zekrom, but they gave Kyurem a pretty big energy lead. Glaciate will connect, they're now debuffed, and I can just shield once, farm down, and once I take switch, this game should basically be over, because that way, I'm going to be able to put the Groudon onto the Rayquaza, and there's not really a whole lot that Groudon can do there. Back in comes the Groudon. I'm farming up and making it to the Glaciate before they connect with a Precipice Blades. Glaciate will get the shield, so I had to give up a shield for switch, but I get it right back. Kyurem, one of my favorite Master League mons. This thing is an absolute beast. They go for the Fire Punch. That will not KO, and they snipe with a Lugia. And I'm sending in RHYPERIOR. And here, honestly, I don't play the matchup particularly well. What I should be doing is always farming up to the Rock Wrecker. If I want to bait with Breaking Swipe, that's fine, but I need to always farm up at minimum to the Rock Wrecker, because if I'm not doing that, then they know that it's not going to be a hard-hitting move. As you can see, now I am finally over-farming to the Rock Wrecker and going for the Breaking Swipe. My opponent is going to let that go as well, but this is now Rock Wrecker range, so I'm going to see, can I connect with the Rock Wrecker here? Rock Wrecker does get the KO. All that's left is the Groudon in the back, and this is just Groudon's worst nightmare. They can throw the Fire Punch, they can throw the Precipice Blades, it's not going to matter. Rayquaza making it to this Breaking Swipe, KOing the Groudon, and taking the win. Picking up a great lead in the final match, RHYPERIOR into Giratina. Even though this is a good matchup, I'm still going to save switch into Kyurem to check for a Steel or a Fairy type, and I'm very happy that I did, as I needed to bait out this Melmetal. Unfortunately, all my charge moves here are resisted, so I'm just going to spam out Glaciates into the Melmetal. Melmetal over-farming massively, and now they're going to start firing off Rock Slides. Rock Slide connects into the Kyurem. A second Rock Slide is not going to be enough to KO. If they try and Thundershock down, I think I can make a Blizzard. Blizzard does a lot of resisted damage. My opponent does not want to get hit with the nuke, and they'll fire off the last second Rock Slide to get the KO. I decide to shield the first superpower here, so that way I can shield, farm down, and if they make it to a second superpower, then that of course is going to do less than the first. Superpower will be shielded, opponent is going to give up switch, they send in Giratina, and I'm going to respond with Rayquaza. Rayquaza farming up, opponent does not throw, allowing me to make the Breaking Swipe. Breaking Swipe will be shielded, it's a CMP tie, and I can tank whatever they throw here. They go for the Ominous Wind bait, they do not get the boost, and they're firing off another charge move here. It is going to be the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball gets Rayquaza low. Rayquaza able to get the farm down with a fraction of HP remaining. I have the Breaking Swipe loaded. Opponent sends in Rayquaza, but I accidentally overtap. A massive misplay, and now the question is, can I still win? That Rayquaza is going to be difficult to deal with. Opponent tries to go for the catch onto Melmetal. I go for the Breaking Swipe, but I end up losing CMP here. I'm going to shield. I have to shield something. And I mean, I may as well shield the Breaking Swipe at this point. I'm going to go for the Breaking Swipe, so that way they're doing less damage. And now, if I make it to a Rock Wrecker, this should guarantee the win. They can go for the Breaking Swipe, but they're debuffed now. No chance that's going to KO. And now I can go for the Rock Wrecker. It's debuffed, but it's not going to matter. Rock Wrecker is too good of a move, and we take the win. All in all, Breaking Swipe being given to Rhyperior is an absolutely amazing update. It gives what I would say pretty close to top meta status to an entirely free-to-play Mon, and Rhyhorn itself actually had a spotlight hour last month. That's how I got the XLs for mine. So I feel like this is a step towards making it a bit more accessible to play the Open Master League, which I think is awesome, because the Open Master League is one of my favorite leagues. So giving more people access to play it is absolutely awesome. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.